Hello, LeClaire. My name is Randy Thorman, and I am proud to serve as LeClaire Christian Church's Finance Committee Chairman. I would like to share information on the financial state of LeClaire Christian Church, 2025 finances, and share the proposed 2026 budget that has been reviewed with church elders and sharing with the church congregation to review and vote to approve. So let's get to it. First, let's start with 2025. This slide shows the key net income metrics for 2025. The first column is a 2025 budget we set this time last year. The next column shows how we think the year will finish. The numbers that you see are actuals through the end of October 2025 and projecting for the final 2 months of the year. The third column shows the difference between the two. Our overall numbers are less than projected for revenue by approximately $5,000, higher than projected for expenses by approximately $60,000, for an overall net income loss of $65,000. Or stated otherwise, we'll have to dip into our savings to cover this shortfall. As mentioned by our staff during church service, our general fund is falling short of the original projections, and you may have noticed this in your bulletin. Our weekly need is approximately $18,300, and we average approximately $17,300. So that's about $1,000 short each week. We do continue to have faithful givers, and we want to thank you for your generosity to support LeClaire and our mission. Expenses are higher, and this is due to several unexpected expenses, along with some much-needed upgrades at LeClaire. This will be discussed in later slides. Due to the projected negative net income, there has been actions taken. 1, staff and ministry teams have been looking to trim discretionary spending throughout the later part of 2025. 2, with the goal of $20,000 for the Christmas funds, which is beyond normal giving, the second $10,000 will be used for the general fund. As you know, the first $10,000 is set aside for some of the missions that LeClaire supports. 3, future revenue forecast in 2026 is projected to be conservative, and expense forecast is less than 2025. These projections will also be discussed in later slides when discussing 2026 budget plans and projections. Here are some key 2025 financial variances for income. Those in red are below budget, and those in black are exceeding budget. Black is favorable, red is unfavorable. A large majority of our income is the general fund at approximately 87%. The general fund was projected to be $19,900 short, but $10,000 from Christmas will cut this shortfall by about half. This $10,000 would normally go to Feed My Starving Children, but they are projecting to exceed budget by $16,600. So the LCC leadership decision was to redirect these funds. Debt retirement income fell short, but additional debt retirement payments continued, and we were able to pay additional principal payments in excess of $50,000. This will help LeClaire meet our goals of payoff in early 2028. I will touch on our mortgage later. Bucks for Blessing exceeded budget by $6,800, so we could provide meals to kids in need. Due to your giving and the work led by the Nobles, we'll continue to feed several kids in our community. As you will see in the balance sheet, this fund is well funded due to your generous giving. Although no money was budgeted for a parking lot in 2025, we did receive seed money when this does commence in 2026. Now let's turn to the expense side and some key 2025 financial variances. Those in red are exceeding budget, and those in black are below budget. Again, black is favorable and red is unfavorable. As mentioned earlier, one major expense in 2026 was spending $35,800 on new projector, screens, house lights, and audio-visual equipment. We received 4 checks in 2024 and a final check in 2025 for a net income of $46,900 from the IRS. These IRS checks were for the 2020-2021 money from Employee Retention Credit, or ERC, for COVID-related benefits. no strings attached, but leadership wanted to designate these funds for a special project if we received, as there was no guarantee we would receive. This money was then designated for the worship as much of the equipment was outdated and failing. We had a patchwork of equipment with spare and loaned equipment, and it was difficult to see our screens for worship. Even though much of the funds were received in 2024, we delayed the purchase and work from 2024 to 2025 so our incoming worship minister, James Downing, could assess our equipment and help choose the best solution, as he had a vast experience with systems. He has done an excellent job to optimize these funds to create an even greater worship system and setup for LeClaire. So, a huge chunk of the expense overage is due to that new equipment purchases and the installation in 2025, even though the majority of the income came in 2024. I won't touch on all the line items, but another one is the electric and gas and snow removal. These are normal operating expenses, and we must incur due to increased rates and or more snow in 2025, especially around Sundays. This will likely increase as we had another snow in November. The team is looking to optimize these costs by reviewing equipment such as smart thermostats and maybe doing less removal on weekdays and or looking to review our vendors to ensure we have the best pricing. Special projects was over as this funded several engineering-related costs associated with the parking lot. Finally, the online offering fees is much lower than projected, which is great. These amounts are $3,500 less than the projected $12,100 for 2025. This expense is for processing charge fees for credit card and bank transactions for online giving. Credit cards are more than bank checking, but still fees associated with both. I do want to let you know that when you are offering cash or check at the church receives the full amount of your donation. My intent here is to inform you that online giving does take a fee. Both methods are greatly appreciated. My goal is simply to make sure that you have this information to choose what option works best for you. So, with 2025 recap complete, now let's show how 2025 compared to previous years, while also showing our proposed 2026 budgets for income, expenses, and our cash reserves to set the table. This is the income trend for the past 5 years, plus 2025 and the 2026 proposed budget. It shows a very healthy growth with an average increase between 2020 and 2024 of about 12.5%. However, 2025 is projecting a 1.1% drop in income compared to 2024. Thus, this change is impacting our 2026 projections. Could 2025 be lower than normal and 2026 go back to what we've seen around that 12.5%? Certainly could, but we wanted to be conservative in our estimates. So the 2026 is approximately 2.7% higher than 2025 actuals and forecast. In addition, that increase is also reflective of increased attendance of about 11.5% from August through November compared to this time last year. This chart shows our expenses trend. Of course, when there is more income, there are more expenses to keep up with the programs. The expense trend is not as even as the revenue trend because of building projects, or in the case of 2021, we clamped down on expenses because of the uncertainty surrounding the pandemic. 2024 to 2025 is forecasting to show a 9.8% expense increase. Similar to adjustments we made on the income side, we also need to temper and pull back on expenses. Therefore, we are forecasting a 3% expense reduction for 2026 compared to 2025 actuals and forecast. The other metric we watch closely is cash in the bank, which is reflected on the balance sheet. This chart shows our cash reserve at the end of each year beginning in 2020, with 2025 estimated and 2026 forecasted. 2025 year-end cash reserve is dependent upon the November and December actuals, including the current Christmas Fund giving campaign. We project the end of the year in the $330,000 range. Some people may ask, why should a church even have a cash reserve? Why not spend it on improvements or donate it to worthy Christian causes? Valid questions to be sure. The reason is threefold. One, we need to have a fund to draw upon in the event of an emergency. Like many of you may have with your household, LeClaire has determined that the fund should be approximately 3 to 4 months of our operating expenses. 2, it is to help cover funds for items we collected in the previous year, but we will not spend until the next year. This can be accounts for Bucks for Blessing or Feed My Starving Children, as some examples. And then 3, it is to cover anticipated expenses. So the next slide shows how the balance sheet and how these cash reserves are designated or held in general reserve. Let's dive into the balance sheet, which is new to the congregation for the finance handouts, but it is similar to the previous cash reserve views we previously showed, just the cash reserves and the designated accounts. Here you will see the assets portion of the balance sheet. We are projected to end 2025 with $330,074 of total current assets or liquid assets, cash in the bank. Within the total current assets, you will notice designated funds. The designated amounts are funds collected in 2025 or prior years that will be spent in 2026 or in the future. These dollars are spoken for, or what we consider designated. We remove these from our available cash. In other words, they are not to pay for normal operating expenses. This is holding to the commitment that if designated for the above, these funds will only be spent on those lines that they were designated for. The designated amounts total $103,724. I'll highlight a few of these accounts. Special projects are dollars set aside for larger projects, such as building upgrades or possibly seed money for the parking lot. Speaking of the parking lot, we already have $6,000 donated for the parking lot, or space for one more. More to come on fundraising on the parking lot as several church members continue to work with others on the plans and estimates to hopefully start in 2026. Bucks for Blessing and Benevolence have increased funds over the past 2 years due to giving, and these are in very healthy, if not abundant, positions. We also designated $4.1 million for the non-liquid assets, which is an estimate of our property and building value based on a 2021 assessment plus estimated escalation rates. One additional item we track with our current assets is a previously stated goal of having 3 to 4 months of reserve to cover operating expenses. Monthly operating expense is total expenses minus special projects and debt retirement. For 2026, that will be approximately $89,000 per month. Therefore, 2026 cash reserves should be between $260,000 and $360,000. $226,351 gives LeClaire approximately 2.54 months of cash reserve for operating expenses. Therefore, we are slightly lower than minimum threshold, but still okay. We covered the assets on the balance sheet. Now let's cover the liabilities and equity. We have only 2 liabilities: short-term of credit card, which we pay off each month, and our outstanding mortgage loan, which is a long-term debt. One of the goals of a healthy church budget is to pay off all debt. Our mortgage is the only true long-term debt. Let me give you some details on our mortgage. Our mortgage is a 20-year amortization loan with a 10-year rate lock of 3.75%. This was refinanced in 2021. When we refinanced, we saw a much better rate. Yet we wanted to continue to budget and pay the same previous loan payment amount, which meant more to our principal and debt retirement payments. With interest savings as an additional payment, the loan we paid off in less than 7 years from the date we obtained the loan, which is February 2028, which is 2 years and a few months from now. Wow! The interest savings over that payment period will be approximately $148,000. So the current mortgage balance is approximately $180,000 at the year end. With our 2025 recap, trends, and our balance sheet, including mortgages, Now let's talk about the 2026 proposed budget. This slide shows the 2026 budget compared to the 2025 budget and the 2025 forecasted results. I kind of already covered this, but as you can see, the forecast for 2026. Revenue and expenses increased by a conservative 2.2% compared to the 2025 budget. In relation to 2025 actuals and forecast, revenue will increase by 2.7%, and the expenses will decrease by 3%. We always have a net zero surplus deficit forecasted, and that will be for 2026 as well. We would like to highlight a few items in the 2026 budget to share and end on. General fund is raising by about 2 to 4.5% if compared to the 2025 budget and the 2025 actual forecast respectively. These are modest increases. We are still looking to continue to attack the building debt with focused intensity. So we have included budgeted income of $18,000 for our membership to contribute to our $51,000 debt retirement commitment. Building grounds is decreased. We shared the desire to lower costs associated with utilities and snow, but also special projects is also lower. Finally, staff leaders also wanted to reduce their own expenses to improve the financial health of the church. And that's a true sign of leadership, of leading by example. CIY, Move, and Mix continue to be great events for our middle school and high school youth. This is exciting as so many discover Jesus through these amazing experiences. Costs continue to rise for youth to attend, but Trey and his ministry are looking to increase fundraising even more in 2026. We hope that you will continue to support Trey and the church youth. Speaking of youth, a little older with the college, but Jeremy has really ramped up college-age ministry, as shared in the church and social media. This is exciting times, and we want to allocate additional funds to this ministry. We hope you continue to support this ministry as well, and I heard food is always welcomed. In conclusion, the details of the 2025 budget and the 2025 actuals projected and the proposed 2026 budget, along with the balance sheet, will be provided by email, are available in person at the church, or by request to the church office email. The handout will provide all the details by budget year and budget line as in years past. The elders and I will be available anytime to answer any and all questions you may have. We hope you find this information helpful. I will continue to end on the same note as I have done in the previous LeClaire financial video updates. One of the core values of LeClaire is using what God entrusted to us. We know that this is not ours, and we ask that you pray that we will use these finances and resources for the common good as well as pointing people to Jesus. God bless you and LeClaire. Thank you.